Sharpshooter has received big buffs after the last balance patch, and with the buffs, both the Deathstrike and all companion builds and playstyles have changed, also creating different variations of builds and playstyles. In this video, I am covering only Deathstrike, as Low Companion deserves a full video on its own due to wide variety of available builds. In case you haven't seen already, I made a 3-minute side-by-side DPS test comparison video that showcases 3 most common builds for Deathstrike and Low Companion, so check that out as well before watching this video. Deathstrike has always been a build that focuses on burst by using identity skill Last Rush to apply 50% damage increase on any skill over the course of 8 seconds. This means you have to land every damage skill in that time frame to maximize damage. The old Deathstrike build had only 4 damage skills, but with the new patch, we are adding 5th or 6th damage skill depending on your choice. With 2 extra damage skills, there is a very tight gap to fit all 6 skills in 8 seconds. Deathstrike does not scale with specialization anymore, and the Wealth runes are of no use for Sharpshooter at all. Having to fit 5 or 6 damage skills in 8 seconds makes Deathstrike comparatively harder to play and requires excellent knowledge of mechanics and patterns. Being considered a burst class, it still cannot compete with the traditional burst classes like Igniter Sorceress or Surge Deathblade, but it makes up for lower cooldowns and faster rotations. Deathstrike build has 3 different variations: Salvation with Claymore Mine and Mass Increase, Nightmare with Claymore Mine and Hitmaster, and a Nightmare without Claymore Mine with Cursed Doll and Hitmaster. The stat allocation for all 3 is the same. You want to maximize crit with swiftness as a secondary stat on a necklace and bracelet. If you get 80 plus quality accessories, you can reach 1750 plus crit and 650 swiftness. The goal is to have as much crit as possible, as your main damage skills have a high crit chance. In a 3-minute DPS test video, I was consistently able to achieve 70% crit rate without any crit synergies, which would only add up to doing even more damage and having even higher crit rate. The skill build, tripods, gems and runes also don't change as much for all 3 builds, with small change for a No Claymore Mine build. Snipe, Hawkshot, Sharpshooter, Arrow Wave, Charge Shot and Claymore Mine are your 6 main damage dealing skills, so you should aim for at least level 4 tripods on all 6 of them. The exception being Silver Master Tripod on Hawkshot, which for the best convenience and fluid rotation you should prioritize on level 5. Other 17 tripods are damage increase tripods, which will significantly boost overall damage, so look to get them as high as you can. It goes without saying that all 6 damage skills should be on level 12 if you have the skill points. If not, prioritize Snipe and Hawkshot first. Other 2 skills we are using in this build are Atomic Arrow, which got a quality of life upgrade where it applies 6% damage increase on hit and refreshes it again on explosion, so you have a 11-second buff. And Deadly Slash, which stays on level 1 and is only used for counters. Runes are as follows: Legendary Galewind on Snipe, Epic Galewind on Hawkshot and Arrow Wave, Legendary Overwhelm on Claymore Mine and Sharpshooter. Note, if you have mana issues, change to Focus Rune on Sharpshooter. Legendary Focus on Charge Shot, Legendary Bleed on Atomic Arrow, and either Quick Recharge or Purify on Deadly Slash. Preferred Awakening is Fenrir's Messenger, as it fills up your meter on the start of the fight, otherwise it will take 2 full rotations before you fill up your meter, which will lose you a lot of damage for the other Awakening that does slightly more damage. Gems are as follows: 7 attack gems on 6 damage skills, plus Silverhawk damage, and 4 cooldown gems on Snipe, Hawkshot, Sharpshooter and Arrow Wave. This is the exact build you use for both Salvation and Nightmare with Claymore Mine. The key differences for No Claymore Mine build are obviously dropping the Claymore Mine and adding Moving Slash with either Rage, Purify or Quick Recharge rune on either level 4 or level 7. Remove Claymore Mine attack gem and add Atomic Arrow attack gem, and add 3 new level 5 tripods, 1 on excellent movement on Moving Slash and 2 on Atomic Arrow. In the Engravings department for Salvation Claymore Mine build, we are running Deathstrike, Grudge, Keen Blunt Weapon, Curse Doll, and Mass Increase. This will give you the absolute highest overall damage, and the reason for Mass Increase over Hitmaster is the use of Claymore Mine, which has a frontal attack modifier, which means that damage from Hitmaster would not be applied on Claymore Mine. But with Mass Increase, it applies those 18% attack power increase. Salvation 6 will give you enough attack speed to pull off the rotation and fill all 6 skills into 8-second time frame. More about the rotation at the end of the video. The only way to run Claymore Mine with Nightmare set is by dropping Mass Increase for Hitmaster. This will reduce the overall damage, but it's still more damage than a No Claymore Mine build due to using 6 instead of 5 damage skills every rotation. Without Mass Increase, you have enough attack speed to fit all 6 skills into 8 seconds time window, and you don't need to focus too much on frontal attacks with Claymore Mine. The only way to play Nightmare set with Claymore Mine and Mass Increase is by dropping 1 crit ring to Swiftness, but this will then cause a damage loss due to RNG with lower crit rate. No Claymore Mine build uses the same engravings as Nightmare Claymore Mine build, where we use both Hitmaster and Curse Doll. You have option to play Nightmare or Salvation with this, which will give you almost identical damage. The only difference is if you prefer mana upkeep or faster attack speed. Card set for early to mid game is Lost Wind Cliff set, which will give you 7% crit rate, while Light of Salvation is still the best endgame DPS set for Sharpshooters. Rotation is very important for Deathstrike builds, as you have a very tight window to hit all 6 damage dealing skills. The rotation is almost identical for all 3 variations of Deathstrike build, minus Claymore Mine if you're not using it. If you're using Salvation set, there are 2 different ways you can start the fight. Since we cannot start the fight with full 20 stacks of Salvation, you will have to use first rotation without the buff and then build it up to 20 stacks before the next one. I strongly recommend to use Fenrir's Messenger instead Tornado Awakening, as it deals slightly less damage, but it gives a very much needed quality of life of starting the fight with full identity gauge. Before every raid there are mobs that you need to clear up, so use those mobs to get full meter and build 20 stacks of Salvation before starting the boss fight. This will give you insane amount of damage straight off the start. If you have 0 gauge and 0 stacks of Salvation, this is the rotation. Atomic Arrow to apply 6% damage increase. Then use Fenrir's Messenger Awakening, which will fill up your identity meter. Activate Identity and use Wings of Storm and Last Rush, which will apply 50% damage increase from Deathstrike Engraving. After that, we are following it up with 6 damage dealing skills. First Hawkshot, Snipe, Charge Shot, Sharpshooter, Claymore Mine, and finishing off with Arrow Wave. Every rotation after that, apply Atomic Arrow when Hawkshot is at 2 to 3 seconds on the cooldown, and then repeat the whole rotation. The key thing that allows us to hit all 6 skills in the 8 seconds is animation cancelling Claymore Mine with Arrow Wave. It's not exactly full animation cancel, but as you notice, both of them are hitting 3 times at almost exactly the same time, meaning you want to overlap these 2 skills. The last skill can be any skill between the 3 of Arrow Wave, Charge Shot and Sharpshooter, but it cannot beat Claymore Mine due to long casting animation. If you play the build without Claymore Mine, then you don't have to worry about that. If you are starting the fight with full meter and 20 Salvation stacks, then we use Last Rush twice. This will give you the maximum damage straight off the start, and you can also use this rotation multiple times through the fights that are very long after the Awakening comes off the cooldown for the 2nd or the 3rd time. With the Nightmare build, you will need to use Fenrir's Messenger at the start of the fight to get the Nightmare buff and full meter, meaning you already start with the maximum damage. 2 most important skills that need to hit every time are Last Rush, that applies Deathstrike buff, and Hawkshot, which will start generating meter. We use these 2 one after another in a very fast manner. The best thing about using these 2 skills is that you can take your time and find a perfect moment to use them. You don't need to use them at the exact time they come off the cooldown. If boss is moving a lot, simply wait a second, walk up as close as you can, and then use both of them one after another. It's better to wait few seconds and lose some DPS than completely missing both of them, causing your next 2 rotations to suffer greatly. Hopefully I haven't missed anything important. I try to cover as much as possible, but if I did miss something important and you have any questions or concerns, let me know in the comments and I'll answer it there. I'm also working on LoL Companion Guide, which could take few more days to finish as I'm not as experienced on it and it has more variation than Deathstrike that I need to test and find out what works the best. If you made it this far, thank you for watching, consider subscribing, and if you are interested to watch more of my content, click on the videos on your screen.